I know that when we first met, you were in the education space, and now you've pivoted into this new disruptive company that's sort of giving hotels and other accommodation services a run for their money. Talk to me a little bit about your path to China. I know you're part of the entrepreneur factory that is Stanford, and then you ended up here back in the homeland, so to speak.
So, as you said, I came straight here after my MBA at Stanford. That was about 6 years ago, and came here, two foreigners, literally barely able to speak Chinese. None of us had done business here before. We thought there was a huge opportunity in China, especially for English learning, which was the space that we were in. So, we came out here. What our idea was to build, was the first company to leverage a virtual call center model and deliver live on-demand English training to students in China. So it was, we built the business plan when we were at school. We raised a small round of angel funding, and then we came out here to start doing it. It took us about 12 months to get a product up and running. Then what we did was we were able to approach the VCs that are out here. We raised a second round of funding and then built the company up. We actually built it into the largest live on-demand IELTS training company in China. I know that the Pearson guys out here, IELTS is a competitor to the test that they have. But it was basically connecting hundreds of teachers working from home anywhere in the US to students anywhere in China. And they could literally, once they bought our course, this was a fee-for-service course, they could literally go online once they paid and connect at any time with our open hours. That was 5 hours in a day, and connect immediately to a teacher who knew their background, knew how to teach them, gave them live feedback. It was all recorded. And so, where our passion lay there was really trying to merge what we could see technology could do really well, and what obviously you needed a human being to do, which was to live teach someone in oral English. We had quite a lot of success with that. Sold the company to a company called Youlu in 2010. Youlu is one of the world's largest physical call center companies, teaching to schools in Korea and Japan. And the rationale for the acquisition was they needed the LMS, the systems, the digital platform we developed, as well as the distributed work-at-home call center model that we developed to lower their costs and a footprint in China. So fortunately, I was able to conclude that, and after merging the two companies, I started looking elsewhere, and hence, as you mentioned, that pivot to go into something else.
Terrific. I love the exit stories. So right now you're working with the Samwer brothers who are based in Germany, and you're taking, I think, a very innovative approach to a proven model, the sort of the Airbnb model. Let's take some room nights that are available and rent them out, like a spare room to a traveler. Really giving, especially in New York City, expensive hotel rooms a run for their money. But you have a different model here in China. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the first things that I like to try and correct people, I'm not saying that was the misconception there, but we are not an Airbnb clone. We're very different to what's happening in the US, and that's for multiple reasons of what the China market is like, what the clientele is like, what the supply is like. So, let me start by giving some background. I mean, let's look at the domestic hotel industry in China. That last year was an $11 billion industry, right? It's growing like crazy. It's going at like 15-20% per year, right? And and the question is, right, with all of this, all this growth, where are people actually going to stay, right? Now, if you look at the hotels and how they're being built, actually hotel prices are increasing at like 15-20% as well. And if you look at even with all this growth, and you look at the capacity of hotels, if there's a conference in any particular city in China, you quickly find that all the hotels are booked up. You can't actually go and stay anywhere. Right?
I've experienced that, yes.
Another metric is that, especially in the sector where you have economy hotels, right? You see a lot of Rujia, Home Inns, Subash, all those types of hotels. But actually, if you look at a percentage of what that makes up of the total market in China, it's just over 10%. As compared to a developed country, so as compared to, say, Europe or to the US, they are about 50+%. So there's a huge shortage of this cheap accommodation for people in the market. Right? Now, that leads to a question of, so how can you fill the supply? Right? Now, you may or may not know, but 2 years ago, there was a media report which was released. It was all over the Chinese news that there were 65 million, right? 6,500万 empty apartments in China. And that's an incredible figure, no matter how you look at it, 65 million empty apartments. Now, later, there were some questions about the authenticity of that, but even if you take a haircut, and we've looked at it, if you look at urban cities in China, there's still north of 20 million empty apartments sitting around in China. Now,
you can see it. You can see buildings where they're, sold out, but the lights are just not on.
That's right. Walk down the street, and it's not a hard figure to believe, right? Now, if you, with all these empty apartments, most of them sit in real estate companies, okay? But anyone who's, looked into real estate in China knows that if you try and invest in real estate for the rental yield, you're not even hitting 1%. Or you may as well stick your money in the bank, okay? So you've got all these empty apartments, none of them are really being rented. And the question is, how the hell do you make any money out of this, okay? Now, what's happened is that China's full of entrepreneurs, savvy entrepreneurs, scrappy entrepreneurs. People have found out that you can play a pretty interesting arbitrage with the short-term rent on this. So if you were to rent an apartment for 2 years, or 1 year, whatever, and pay that all up front to the owner of that apartment, you can then rent it out on a short-term basis, 2 days, 3 days, a few weeks, right, and earn a much, much higher return. In fact, on a monthly basis, you're going to get a 200-300% ROI on your investment, on your rent. Right? So
you just have to hustle and get that.
You just have to get people to. And what's the value proposition, right? You can pay 300 renminbi to stay in a home inn where you live in a box, right? Or you could pay half that amount, right? Stay in a bigger, twice the size of an apartment. There are many, many locations all throughout China where you can find these things. And it's all the comfort of living in somewhere that's like your own home. You can cook there, you can wash there, you have your own privacy, you have your own, most of the time you have your own lounge as well, right? So the value proposition is super, super, super duper clear. Now, the thing is, this industry has come up before we were around. Right? If you ever came out of a train station in Beijing or whatever, you'll see people approach you and ask you, 入租房, 短租房, do you want to rent, right? And actually, a lot of the places they're selling are these types of places. So there are tons of these subscale, professional subletters, right, in all these major cities in China. But the problem is, right, why wasn't there really a market for this? Even though it started ages ago, why didn't it come up? Because they had no way to market, right? What are the problems? As a consumer, if I'm going to find one of these places, I pretty much want to see it before I actually go and stay there, right? There's no way to compare, contrast, to filter or see all these apartments that are out there, right?
Trust but verify. Yes.
Trust, right? If these people were, how they were advertising as well as the posters and leaflets is that, they post on 赶集网 or 五八同城, right? And, if you saw a link there with like some pictures, would you believe it? Probably not, right? And would you go and, visit Shanghai, booking one of these places, no matter how much money you were able, how much money you saved, if you got there and it wasn't where you wanted, that risk is too high, right? So, and the third reason is that there's no way to pay for this, right, before. Right? There was no payments facilitation. You wouldn't wire the money to someone who you've never met before, right? Because they could probably run out with money and you'd never know. Right? What Airizu does is we basically solve all those problems, right? We consolidate all these subscale professional subletters. When I say professional subletter, they could anywhere have from 10 apartments to 100 apartments, right? We sell them all onto a single platform where consumers who come on board, they can search, find, and book exactly the sort of place that they want to go, in literally seconds, right? We verify all apartments. We send our own guys out there. We take the pictures. We go against a checklist and make sure that everything they say that is there. It's got a washing machine. It's got a cooker, whatever. It's actually going to be there. And then we provide a payments facilitation platform where we take the deposit and ensure that that room will be there when they go to stay.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's a very China-specific model, and also that seems like there's a gigantic gap in the market. It's just aching to be, addressed.
Absolutely. I mean, let me tell you, like Airizu, we launched our website almost a year ago. It was late June of last year. We just actually 3 days ago, and we posted all the Weibo, we just crossed the 200,000 book nights mark. That is growing twice the speed that Airbnb grew in the US when they started. We have already 70,000 apartments in 80 cities throughout China. And we're getting hundreds more every day being auto-uploaded now. So definitely the market's there. It's very different. The value proposition is very clear. But there are still kinks in the system. Still,
tell us about some of the biggest challenges that you faced along the way.
Right. I mean, one of the challenges that we faced along the way is being able to deal with these subscale, professional subletters, right? They, necessarily, we have to go in and verify them, right? And then we have to make sure that they can update their calendars, make sure that they have the right availability when people book in the system, right? The system won't work if someone books and then as a result of, after they booked, then there's no room because the subletter hasn't updated their calendar, right? So, we've worked really hard at improving what we call our capture rates. If you book a hotel and you book it, you would pretty much assume that you're going to be able to stay at the hotel, right? If you book at at one of like Airbnb or at Airizu, right now it's not 100% that you'd actually get it, right? The idea is if that calendar is updated real time, then you'd be able to, once you book, you're going to get it. So how we've tried to accomplish, to overcome that, and again, you're talking about these guys who sometimes they're not in front of their computer all day, they're running around, they're a 2-man, 3-man, 10-person show, something like that. We've got a call center and actually actively reaches out to all of our top hosts, we call them, the top subletters, to make sure that their calendars are updated in the next, in the forecast 2 weeks. But the other thing, the interesting that's happening, and this is one of the ways to win in this game, is to be able to bring those hosts so far into your platform that they can't leave.
So you're doing something with mobile and
we're doing something with mobile, but more importantly, is they care about making money, right? And the more traffic I can drive to them, then the more reliant they're on our platform. But obviously that's good for them because they save time, they're focusing on what they have to do well.
Sort of passive sales.
That's right. So we have some hosts right now, over 50% of their nights booked all come through Airizu.
They love you guys now.
They love it, right? And at that type of relationship, we're getting the type of leverage that CTrip has, which basically, CTrip, if you book a room on CTrip, it means you can go and stay at that hotel. Even if they're full, they'll find some way to push people out to get you that place. So we have first reserved spots at some of these Airizu apartments. And that means that someone just puts an order in and they pay, they're guaranteed to have that room.
What do you think about the? I see more clearly now that you guys are not Airbnb, but what do you see sort of culturally the difference? So if somebody's going into an apartment that's empty, there's nobody there. Airbnb, of course, you're staying in a room where somebody's actually in the apartment. Is that something that's being less sort of?
What we found is that culturally it's not as accepted in China. Well, there are two things. First of all, let's talk about the supply. Airbnb rents out rooms where people have second homes, third homes, done them up nicely, and they're not living in them, or they haven't rented them out for a long time, or they want to keep them empty so they can live in them whenever they want to. Right? On the whole, Chinese consumers don't have that. Right? They're barely getting their first home, let alone a second home and a third home. Right? And if they do have a second, third, and fourth home, and sometimes 10 homes if you're a Shanxi coal miner, then you've bought it for investment. You haven't done it up, right? And it's not something that you're going to.
Multi-family still maybe.
On the commerce side, actually, it's interesting. We don't have that risk which Airbnb has, which is you go into some nicely decorated place where someone might live there. They've got all their precious stuff there. They've got their children's photos and whatever stuff they bought. And someone go in and trash it because there's not much to trash in these.
I think Airbnb was originally going to be called www.whateveryoudo not take a blue light to that couch.com. Yeah, so
yeah, it's all right now because they've got $1 million insurance or whatever on their rooms. So that's on the supply side, it's something that's very different. But culturally, on the other side, the Chinese consumer does not want to go and stay with someone else and doesn't want to go and stay in someone's spare room. Okay, so. That's a very big difference. Now, the other couple of things we've learned again, which is very different to what you see in other markets, is the type of consumer. Right? We have quite a young consumer right now. It's talking about people who are university students and young professionals. Actually, I suppose we can split it. We've got a portion of them. We've also got families who travel to tourist destinations. But the interesting figure here is that actually over 50% of our bookings, of the people who book our apartments, are in same city bookings. So that means you're living in Haidian, right, and you're booking an apartment in Chongwen or something to go and stay for a couple of nights. Now, I won't dwell on why that is, and I'm sure you can all figure out the type of traffic that uses short-term accommodation. But I mean, the interesting thing is that why this is so interesting, and it's very China-specific again, right? Is that it's also repeat traffic. This is not you're going on holiday.
Double.
Yes. Yes. hence our recent release of the Airizu points system. So the more you stay, the more you get free nights and everything. Yeah.
Very interesting. So one last question is, so you're working with the Samwer Brothers, Rocket Internet, and they're controversial figures. They've been early investors in Facebook. They sold their companies to Groupon, and they're known as sort of very intense operators. Can you share something that you've sort of learned, or something that sort of surprised you in your interactions with them?
To turn my phone off when I sleep. No kidding. I mean, they have a lot of respect for this guy. I mean, for the Samwer Brothers as a whole, they are successful entrepreneurs in their own right, and they've now shifted into helping budding entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs to be able to execute really, really fast in what are quite massive and enormous business opportunities. I interact with Oliver directly, and this is one of the reasons that I came on to Airizu, was to have that experience of working with Oliver. And I think there's one thing that really I think summarizes the two things I say that summarizes Oliver, and one of those things is focus. He really knows how to get through to the right numbers and focus on the right things and help apply that pressure so that you're not with a startup.
Identify the right metrics so you can
There are 101 things going on in a startup, right? But actually, there are probably just a handful, 2 or 3, which actually will make the business work and will take you to the next stage. And he's very good at interacting, as his role as an investor, as a chairman, with the entrepreneurs, with the people in charge, to be able to figure that out and to drive it. The second thing is speed, right? He is able to motivate, and the people you're hiring, we have to motivate our team, but we move very, very, very fast. And I suppose one of the benefits of working with the Samwer Brothers is not to actually worry about funding, because for every Russian project there's a fair amount of funding behind it.
Interesting. Yeah. Yesterday I interviewed Malcolm Cassell from Xfire, and the founding CEO of Xfire is a guy named Mike Cassidy. If you look at venturehacks.com, Mike has an awesome presentation about speed, and I think for my money that's the one sort of advantage that you have. I mean, everybody can focus on metrics, but you have to run faster. So you've been running really fast. Congrats on your growth. Adrian Li, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice. Great. I'm going to be bringing Taylor back up. Is that right? Yes.